because I wasn't live.
Okay.
Morning. I am having such a challenge with my camera this morning, and when you know, it happens when you go live. So I wanted to introduce you to Barbara, who is such a fabulous person, and we're having a lot of fun here just trying to get us figured out. So I guess you're going to have to ride around with me this very first time. And I apologize for whatever it is my camera is doing, but I know you can hear me, right, Barbara?
Right.
Right. Yep. Okay. So we're just going to have kind of a little chat this morning. You know, the camera thing is always my greatest fear. And so when you know, it came true. And so I am going to be here with you in the dark. Not really. I'm just joking about that. But anyway,
well,
we're gonna
hope that you suddenly appear.
Yes, we'll hope I suddenly appear. I don't know how that's going to happen, but you never know. Anyway, so Barbara.
Well, hello. I'm Barbara Ingracia. Thank you, Dr. Shirlene, for inviting me. It's a privilege to be with you, share with your viewers today. I'm Barbara Ingracia of Managed Copyright. And you have dreams, I have dreams, we all have dreams and goals that we want to achieve. And I'm here to support you in achieving those. My idea is to guard your gold mine. Now, what could that possibly mean? You know that gold mines are rocks. You know, but I mean gold mines in terms of your assets. We think about our physical property, our homes, our cars, our furniture, our computers, but we also have intellectual property of the mind. And that's an asset that you want to protect. You have so many things you're thinking about in business that there are some little things that I want to help you understand how to guard your gold mine. The work that you create is a gold mine.
Hey, Barbara, look I've got the other camera up and running.
Yay!
Not the greatest lighting, but at least I'm here. So I don't want to get too serious on this show, you know, because copyright can be such a serious thing.
Blech. Yeah, I like to bring some fun.
But the reason I wanted to bring Barbara on is because she is really, really good as a certified copyright manager. And she does fabulous things with regard to telling us where we can get photos that we wouldn't be able to have otherwise. And especially the free photos. That's what I like the best, is those free photos. So Barbara, you know, I was looking the other day for some photos, and I had such a challenge because I was trying to figure out which ones are free and which ones are not. And, you know, when you pull up free photos, there's all this whole list of things that come up, but they aren't always free, right?
Right. Free can mean different to the digital world. Free can mean perhaps royalty free. And the various stock photos folks, you might find something that's on their site, and then a payment plan and a license pops up, and you know, whoops, nope, that's not free to use. So there are more and more sites now that are dedicated to free to use public domain works. A couple of examples, Pixabay and Unsplash, but there are more and more all the time. The key is to click on that image and look for terms and conditions. Are are all rights reserved or some rights reserved? What do you have to do to be able to use them? The best is to find CC0. That is a Creative Commons indicator that the creator has dedicated them to the public domain. So CC0. You do have to do your due diligence. You can do some filtering, filter down to search only for things that you can use for commercial purposes or that you can modify. So the worst thing is to get a letter in the mail from an attorney who's not your attorney saying you have infringed on someone's work. And it's often images, photos that are our rough introduction to copyright in the digital age.
You know, I think that's the hardest thing is those doggone pictures, because you can find the perfect picture and then it'll be $200. So I like what you said about Pixabay and that it can, you know, we can get pictures on Pixabay, but what does that mean when you say we can get pictures? Because sometimes we're just not able to figure out which ones are free and which ones aren't. Is it only Pixabay?
No, there are quite a few. And that's something that I help people identify. The danger sometimes on the free to use sites is you may see that they're sponsored by a stock photo company. And so there might be something along the top or along the border that are not free to use. Usually they will say this is free to download, no attribution is required, but it's appreciated. Sometimes you see them say, oh, treat us to a cup of coffee kind of thing. So it's important to be sure that what you're getting is what you want.
Well, that makes perfect sense. You know, and I just, yeah, what I did was I went in and I just found a whole bunch that I might need at the same time. And it made it a lot easier instead of trying to look for one at a time. And once you get into the free section, I've noticed that the photos aren't as good as they would have been otherwise.
Yes, that's the sad thing. Although I think they are getting better. And of course, you can always take your own photo. Now you have to be a little careful about privacy or publicity, or if there are live people in the photo. But if you needed a photo of a basket of fruit, you could take your own photo of a basket of fruit. So there are various ways to get what you need. And even if you decide you need to use a stock photo, you read the license terms carefully. That's always the most important thing. Look for the fine print. You might have to scroll to the bottom of the screen, but there's going to be fine print somewhere.
Now, Barbara, if we have a picture already and we're not sure where it came from, how do we find out? What do we do to find out if that picture's legal or not?
Well, if you can go back to where you found it, there are ways to click on that photo and find out who the photographer was, what the terms are, maybe some rights reserved, all rights reserved. It's a tricky thing. It's important to be looking for. One of our major automakers was putting out a new pickup truck, and they wanted it to be a rugged truck. So their marketing agency looked for a bear coming out of the woods and used this bear photo in an advertisement. Well, it turns out that was an all rights reserved photo. And so that caused a lot of trouble. You have to take down the whole ad campaign, start over, maybe pay some retroactive license fees. So it's important to know some things about copyright and licenses. You can't always depend on folks who are doing things for you. They should know, but sometimes they don't.
Wow, that's really interesting because I remember you told me a story about the dancing baby. Do you remember talking to me about that?
Yes.
Oh, would you share that story? I think that is such a great story to illustrate your point.
A mother videotaped her toddler dancing to music in the background. And it was, bouncing around in their little jumper thing. And she was very taken with it and put it up on YouTube. Well, happened to be a song by Prince. And the company that's responsible for his rights, and this was quite a few years ago now, immediately took it down and said that it violated the copyright on the song. Well, the mother wasn't satisfied with that answer, and she got some support from organizations and took it to court. And it went on for 10 years. The toddler was 12 years old or something when it was finally settled, but that the company had not considered the idea of fair use. Why was it being used? How much of the original work? And was it really a threat to the market for the original? So the idea that someone taking something and using something, you have to give a little thought to something called fair use. That is a thought process. It's more of an art than a science, something you have to think through. And ultimately, it's only a court of law that can decide if your use was indeed a fair use. There's also the story of a Grateful Dead history. And the authors wanted to use some of the concert posters along a timeline showing the progress of the group. They asked for a license, they asked for permission, and that was denied. So they then used little thumbnails along their timeline. And the book is huge. So these were just a few to illustrate the progress of the Grateful Dead. It did go to court, but it was found to be a fair use because they were using just thumbnails. They were using it for a different purpose. They weren't using these concert posters to advertise concerts. They were using them for historical perspective. And it didn't harm the market for the original posters. So
yeah, the question I have for you, Barbara, is, so we can't just lift something and use it without permission. And I want you to finish what you were saying, but I just want to make sure that people understand that, I know we take things from everybody else and share them on our Facebook and all that kind of stuff, but that's a problem. That's for some people. So if you share, I think, and you leave the information there for them, that works out okay, right?
Well, I advise people to think link. That is, provide a URL to that resource. That's not making a copy. I work with copyright, which literally is a right to make a copy. And copyright protects the expression of an original idea, not the idea itself. So it's important to capture your ideas in print, in video, in audio, in some fixed medium. And that includes the internet. So we need to assume that something is protected by copyright until we can determine otherwise. And just because we can see it, that we can access it, doesn't mean that it's free to use. And just because we can right-click and copy and paste. It's technologically possible, but that doesn't mean that you have permission to use it. Giving credit is not the same as permission. So there are these things to sort through. And again, assume something is protected by copyright until you can determine otherwise.
So I really like that. Assume that it's protected before you determine and use it, correct? Make sure that everything, because otherwise, I mean, I've had people, I just had a person steal my Heart-Based Total, logo, the way that I use it. And that's a big problem when they steal what you're saying. So I do Heart-Based for everything. And then suddenly I'm seeing other people use Heart-Based with the heart and the whole shebang. And it's like they just took whatever it is that I'm using. So what do you do about that?
Well, to have your ducks in a row prior to some of these things happening is on your website or whatever sites you're using. Make sure you have terms and conditions. Usually you see those down in the footer. You see a privacy policy. You see a disclaimer. Terms and conditions is more contractual than copyright, but in it you say what a visitor or user to your site can and can't do while they're at your site and with what's on your site. So, we go along, we get something and it says, check, I agree. I've read the terms and conditions and I agree. Well, we're usually in a hurry. And so we just say, give me access, I'm clicking. Well, that is really a contractual agreement, but it's a way to protect the content on your website. Certainly in the case of Heart-Based Business, a trademark can protect that name of your business, your logo, your catchphrase. Copyright could protect the image, the drawing, and sometimes you have to decide which is more important way to protect it, copyright or trademark. But copyright now lasts for the life of the author plus 70 years. Whereas trademark, you have to be continuing to use it. You have to renew it every few years. So there are important steps that you can take, that your ducks are in a row, so that when someone does steal something, you have the foundation in place to ask that they cease and desist, to ask their website provider to take it down, and you have to decide if it's worth the hassle. I did have a client who was told on a Friday that her company name was infringing on someone's trademark. And they said, you must take it down right away. Now, this was Easter weekend, so it wasn't even going to be easy to do, but she took it all down and had to rebrand. And that's an expensive endeavor to go through.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Our time goes so fast on this show. It's unbelievable. I'm finding that out already. I want you to talk briefly about the new law for our website. Would you mind sharing that information with us? Because we all need that information to make sure, because I know after talking to you that these webmasters or these guys that create our web pages, they don't know this. And if we don't know this, we're out of luck, right?
Right. And anybody can say that they create websites. And sometimes it's a sideline, a hobby. Sometimes they're actually in that business. And we do try to depend on the professionals that we engage to know the right things. So it is important to know a little bit about copyright law and contractual law. Now, the privacy policy is what is key right now. You may recall that the European Union clamped down on privacy which means how can we as website owners use the private information that someone might submit to us, either to sign up for something or to purchase something. So a privacy policy is a very important aspect to have correct, to have those ducks in a row. So along the bottom, it's good to have terms and conditions, a privacy policy, and a disclaimer that you often see. There's no income guarantee if you use the information I'm providing, or I'm not providing medical advice or legal advice. So saying what it is that you are providing and not providing is an important part of a disclaimer. So terms and conditions, privacy policy, and disclaimer are all important things to have in your website.
Perfect. Thank you, Barbara. And you know, Barbara is wonderful at reviewing your website to make sure that you have everything that you need. She did it for me already. I'm so grateful, because what happened to me was I changed to a different type of format on my webpage. And when my web designers or developers, whatever you want to call them, moved the web page over, I thought I was protected the whole time. And I suddenly the privacy policy and everything, all my copyright information, all of it totally disappeared. And if I hadn't talked to Barbara, I wouldn't have known that. So I had to get them to go back in and add the privacy policy because for some reason it didn't convert from one's website to the other. So I don't know why, but it didn't. So I really suggest that you have Barbara take a look at your website if you want to make sure that you are protected. And what I did was I left her her email address here for you so that you can reach out, and we'll put more information down below. Hopefully you will click to subscribe, and we're here every Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. Pacific, right, Barb?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm on the East Coast, so it's a little later. But thank you so much, Dr. Shirlene, for inviting me to be part of your program and to share with your listeners.
I'm so glad that you were here with me today. It's just been really, really awesome. Why don't you tell them what you have to offer them so that they can go and find more information about you?
Well, you see my my email address here, but I also have something that I have prepared called 5 Steps to Guard Your Gold Mine. And it's a free ebook that you can see the bit.ly address down in the comments. And I hope that you'll take a look at that. It goes into more detail than we have time to talk about today.
All right. Well, Barbara, thank you so much for your time today. It's been absolutely lovely. And I hope that some of you will go get her 5 tips to guard your gold mine. You can't go wrong. She did a beautiful job on it. And I think it'll give you a lot of hints about what you should and shouldn't do, what to watch for, and why you need to watch for that. Because the last thing we want is for you to end up with some sense of litigation that you have to deal with, right? That's where the guard your gold mine comes in.
It takes you away from what you love to do.
Yes.
And so I want to help you achieve your goals and your dreams without all that headache.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Barbara.
Thanks so much.
Sure. We're going to be on every Wednesday at 9 a.m. And, you know, this is just about talking to each other and having fun and really doing some girl talk and getting to know what it is that we need to know to make our businesses better and make it do better faster, right? And if we end up with somebody stealing our information and using our information, such as what I just experienced, and that was just yesterday. Yes, and I had to reach out and go, hey, you know, and they said, well, these are only words. We can use any words we want. And that's not true, is it? I want to ask you that one last thing.
Well, it's true that short phrases and titles, book titles, for example, can't be copyrighted, but they might be protected by trademark. And so that's something to consider. And you know, you don't want your brand to be confused by with someone else's. And
right.
So that's something important to keep in mind.
Awesome. 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 Well, Barbara, thank you so much for your time and for your thoughts. And please subscribe to our show. This was just our kickoff show, and it's been kind of fun and technically challenging, as usual. So anyway, I will see you next week on Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. And we're going to have Denise Mortimer with us next week. And I'll be darned if I'm going to get this video thing straightened out. So see you next week, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.